Each week, American History TV's Real America brings you archival films that provide context for today's public affairs issues.
In French Indochina, communist guerrillas infiltrated North Vietnam. Despite U.S. aid in arms and supplies, France had to accept an armistice, yielding control of the colony to the communists. South Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand faced a threat from the communist-dominated territory. To counteract that threat, Secretary of State John Foster Dulles was instrumental in organizing the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, uniting Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, the Philippines, Thailand, and the United States in a defensive alliance against communist aggression. In the Middle East, a crisis erupted when the Suez Canal was nationalized by Egyptian Premier Abdel Nasser. Hulks were scuttled as barricades, and the canal was closed to British, French, and Israeli ships. Israel invaded Egypt, while England and France sent a military expedition to seize the canal zone. Russia proposed a Soviet-American force to restore order, but Secretary Dulles prevailed on the combatants to yield to a UN mission pending mediation. Also in the Mideast, a communist faction attempted to overthrow the Lebanese government. Its president, Camille Chamoun, asked for aid from the United States. In the first application of the Eisenhower Doctrine, the president dispatched U.S. Marines to Beirut, despite strong Russian protests. The presence of the Marines quickly restored order. When an acceptable plan was adopted in the United Nations, guaranteeing the integrity of Lebanon, American troops were withdrawn in favor of a UN force. A simmering international problem came to a head in 1958 when the Red forces of Mao Zedong on China's mainland shelled the offshore islands of Quemoy and Matsu, garrisoned by troops of the Republic of China. The United States 7th Fleet prepared for action, though America's allies opposed intervention. Chiang Kai-shek, the President of the Republic of China, was persuaded by Secretary Dulles to disavow intentions to invade the mainland, and the shelling dwindled to a stop, leaving the China conflict unresolved. In Cuba, several rebel factions united to fight for the overthrow of dictator Fulgencio Batista. During the revolt, the American naval base at Guantanamo, Cuba, was reinforced as a precautionary measure, but the United States maintained a hands-off policy. Fidel Castro, leader of the United Rebel factions, entered Havana in January 1959, following the flight of Batista. Castro promised free democratic elections. These never materialized. Brutal executions following his war trials and the Marxist backgrounds of his brother Raul and Ernesto Guevara, Castro's chief aides, made it increasingly evident that his regime was under Russian influence. Evidence of communist agents in Latin America had previously appeared in Caracas, Venezuela, when Red-inspired mobs disrupted the goodwill tour of Vice President and Mrs. Nixon in 1958. Upon their return to Washington, the Nixons were hailed by the president for their courage in the face of political gangsterism.